Nate Wooley is a fantastic musician on all levels, and also he's a great writer. And I think it would be a great opportunity to have you, Nate, ask you a couple of questions about your approaches. And maybe we can start off with your trumpet playing. You're an improviser, you're playing music that is written, you're a composer. Pablo Give, a great trumpet player from Cologne, once said to me, most of the stuff that I'm doing, like the techniques, Nate invented. So maybe, and on the other hand, it never sounds technical or something, or experimental in the sense of experimental. So maybe you could tell me something about your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, trumpet-wise, I grew up in such a way in a really small town where I didn't have a lot of structured instruction. So at the time I saw that as something that worked against me. You know, I knew all these people that would go to big schools and study with great teachers, and I was alone learning my own way from whatever books I could find, or if someone came through, I'd get a lesson. But I think it ultimately ended up being something that was really a fantastic blessing for me, because I could learn how I wanted to play the trumpet and how I wanted to sound and what I wanted it to do without the pressure of some sort of structured idea. So by the time I got to college, where there was structure in how I was learning, I had already ingrained the basis of some sort of artistic idea of what I wanted to sound like. And that has always been the human voice. And we all learn that the human voice, like, that's what you go for is, but when we learn it in an institutionalized way, it should be this singing voice. It should be this beautiful operatic, something in tune and in pitch. And what I always liked most about the voice was the things that we try to get out. The little hiccups and the strange sounds we make, and the mumbling and humming and tuneless whistling and things like this that are not something that we perform, but something that's part of us as humans. And so there's been a lot of the trumpet language I have is just based on trying to find a way to do that on the trumpet. And it started as, how can I make these human sounds on the trumpet? And now it's really like, what can the trumpet do that is similar, that isn't the virtuosic, what we think of as the standard virtuosity, but what is the instrument actually capable of doing? And luckily at the time that I was really starting to wrestle with that, I was spending time with this guy, Ron Miles, who was a big teacher for me. And he made some sounds like that as well. And it was one of the reasons I was attracted to his playing. And I remember one day asking him how he made this specific sound. And he said, well, you do it like this and this and this. This is the technical way that you do it, but you won't be able to do it unless you really hear it. He's like, if you can hear that sound in your head as part of who you are as a human being, then you'll figure out how to make the sound. And that's become a big part of the whole language that I use on trumpet. Is it starts in my head, and then at some point it kind of releases into the technique of the trumpet. I very rarely think about how do I do a technical thing until someone asks me, and then I have to do what Ron did to me, which is say, you put your lips together a little bit harder, and the bottom lip comes out, and you have to put the half valve at this and this. But if you don't hear it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to do it, or you will be able to do it, but no one will believe you. Because if it doesn't come from the heart, then you're just mechanically reproducing something that to be impressive, which is completely uninteresting to me. But if you're doing something to express an idea that hasn't been expressed, then even if you quote unquote fail technically, the point will get across to the audience. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do is have the audience feel what you're feeling, and to communicate that idea.
Yeah, I understand that very well in the sense of that it always sounds natural hearing you playing live. It never sounds like a trickery or box of tricks or something. Yeah. But maybe it's interesting to pursue one point that you said. You said you were talking about the human voice and maybe, you know, to open it up away from the trumpet. Do you feel that you, as an artistic human voice, are you like in a, how can I say, in an isolated, how can I say, protected area of art, or are you moving within a society that is?
I think that I'm moving in a couple different communities. You know, one I happened to come up at a time that there were a number of trumpet players experimenting in similar ways. So, you know, Peter Evans, Greg Kelly, Axel Derner, Franz Hatzinger, Mazen Kerbaj, we were all in different parts of the world doing similar experimentation at the same time, and then we all met. So there's that community that I still very much feel a fondness for and am part of. And then, you know, there's a Brooklyn community of musicians, and within that there's the jazz world, and there's the experimental musicians and noise musicians and the new music, contemporary music people. And it's a strange time because all of those communities are coexisting and there's very few boundaries between them. When I first moved to New York, the boundaries were very strong. And now all of them people float freely between all of them. So I don't feel like I'm in a bubble, but I feel like I'm able to move between multiple things that would be bubbles if they had more of a concrete wall between them. But it's a very open and viscous art world that I roam in at the time.
And if we zoom out even more, let's say about society, political situations, let's say, I don't know, I remember that there was one journalist calling your way of playing extremely hostile, and you put it as a how can I say, as a crown on your head. So that obviously reflects that, you know, art as you do it without compromise has an edge to it, is there also like even if you...
I mean, I don't consider it being overly edgy or hostile. I mean, it is intense. And I think at the time that guy wrote that, I was embracing sounds that were harsher. Although I don't know that I necessarily thought of them that way. I was interested in sounds that were a little more extreme. But zooming out to larger culture, I find that I kind of build models of there's like this idea of kinship versus family, right? So your family are the people you're related to by blood, and you can't handle that. I mean, you can't change that. That's who it is. But then there's your kin, which are the people that you've chosen that you're closest to. And I find that I built a kinship system that extends from people like you, because we're very close and we learn a lot from each other, all the way back to people that I've never met, but they are models of a way to act in the world, both as artists and as human beings. So Ron Miles was very important, not just musically, but ethically to me, the way that he treated human beings and the way that he walked in the world. Going back to Agnes Martin, the painter, Wendell Berry is very important to me, the poet. People like that, and learning not only how they approach art, but how they approach their art's place in the world. And I think that's what I follow. And just to explode that out, those people tend to be, they're engaged with the world, but they're engaged not in a confrontational way, but they are confrontational, or they are engaging with the world by doing the work that they want to do. So it's less about work that is intended to change the world and more about, this is what I want to do, and by me following this to the end that I can follow it in the best possible way, and treating people in the way that I want to be treated, and doing it as perfectly as I possibly can, but also with humility, then that is my statement in the world, you know. And it doesn't necessarily get splashy. You don't get huge headlines. You don't always get a lot of grant money because you're not controversial in that way. You're not confronting big ideas. But I think for me, those are the sorts of people whose legacies live on for generations and generations, because they're just quietly, I call them the small, still voices. Like, they just quietly do what they do, and they do it in a way that is as close to beyond reproach as they can get. And then they pass away, and that's it. And that's from really the very early days of thinking about being an artist, that those are the people I've been drawn to. And that's now that I'm a little more conscious of what that is, and I can articulate to myself what they were doing and why I'm attracted to it. It's what I try and do and put out into the world when I'm dealing with other artists or the communities that encounter my music.
It's actually a beautiful way of putting humbleness and taking a stance, an artistic, pursuing an artistic.
Doesn't mean weakness.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. So it's not a humbleness in the sense of I'm putting myself back. I'm still there, but yeah, beautiful. Maybe this is exactly also some things that you were touching, some aspects that you were touching to ask something about Sound American, and you being a writer, for you're the editor-in-chief of Sound American, which is one of, I think, the largest, one can say, database articles about any kind of Northern American
I think
music.
It's kind of the only. It's the only music journal of its kind at the moment, although there are some that are coming up, which I'm really happy about. But it's a journal that it's got a couple tenets. One is it doesn't take any money from advertising, and it does not advertise or review anything. It tries to stay clear of all commerce, because I think commerce shouldn't drive the conversation around music. And it, whenever possible, it prioritizes musicians speaking about their work in their own words. So my job as editor, a lot of times, is to have a musician write about something they love and write about something that they're passionate about, whether it's their own music or someone else's. And then I help them maintain their voice while making it, acceptable for publication, which usually just means putting a comma here or there, little things, but trying to let them say what they want to say the way they want to say it. And so I'm really proud of the work that's happened there, because I've done 30 issues of it, and it's been really influential, and it's brought a lot of people to music that they wouldn't have checked out before. It's used in a lot of college courses now to teach certain subjects, because it's more of a first-person narrative than it doesn't have that kind of academic go-between, which I that has its own place and is very important as well. But it's great to have these voices, and the thing I'm most proud of is now it's become a model for younger people to start their own journals, they aren't Sound American. They've got their own perspective and things that they want to talk about that maybe I'm not suited to talk about. But they see that it can be done, and it can be done by a single person with not much money, and actually reach people. And there's more and more journals coming out that way. I get more and more emails, people wondering if, I can give them a half an hour on the phone to talk about how to do it. And I've been really proud of the things that I've seen that have come out of those conversations. So I'm hoping that, at some point, Sound American is obsolete and there's a whole community of people talking this way,
Great. Maybe for the last question, I would like to come back to trumpet playing, like focus back on something that you once said to me, or that I also maybe received sometimes. This constant evolution especially, I mean, of all musicians, one could say, I mean, you have to work, and no matter what your instrument is on it, but like a trumpet player with the chops, with the lips, and this daily routine, keeping things up. And I hear you talking about, I don't know how many times you told me that you were changing your your approach, the way you would do things, and that's again an evolution that goes over months or years, maybe even. So maybe it's beautiful to have a little focused perspective on that.
I mean, one of the things that I realized really early on, like I was just thinking, I was actually talking with my dad about this, because I started playing so young, in his band. I was thinking about this kind of stuff when I was 14 or 15 already, like why I like to play music. And really early on, I realized that the reason that I love it is it doesn't end. I love things that, you know me, like I love giant books because I feel like they're not going to end. But the moment that I open the book, I'm already bummed out because I know that it's going to be over at some point. But music, and especially trumpet, is just, I heard someone yesterday talking about the bass is unforgiving, the bass, double bass as an instrument. And I thought, yeah, that's one way to put it, but it's so exciting to play an instrument that asks you to pay attention to it every day. For me, that's like the best part of playing music, is that every single day I'm going to do a thing and it's going to change. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be good. Like some days feel horrible, and I play an hour and I'm like, okay, that's it. I can't do anymore. But for me, the idea of spending a lifetime working on something that changes for the entire life is like, that's a life well spent. I think to bring it back quickly to writing is the same way for me. I'm a much better writer now than I was 10 years ago, but I still think I'm a horrible writer. So I'm hoping that in 10 years I'm better than that, or composing, but trumpet is really the one that it's just been with me so long. I've been playing for 36 years. Professionally. I started playing gigs with my dad when I was 12. And every single day is a chance to revisit that and not to get better. I don't know if I necessarily think of it that way, but to get a deeper understanding of what I'm doing, and to get a deeper understanding of the instrument and the technique of the instrument, all the techniques of the instrument, because everybody plays it differently. And to just see how far I can push it, so it's not even just about finding a new sound, but finding a new way to play a high C that's more in tune. Like, that's exciting to me, because it's like, oh, now you opened up this new way of thinking. And recently I've been thinking about music as a field. There's this wide open space, and you populate it with all the things that you know, right? So if I just think about trumpet, this is a now 36-year field, all the things that I've learned about trumpet. And within that, at any one time, if I'm playing a 5-minute solo, I now have this wide open field full of things that I can deal with. And every time I learn something new, that gets added to the field. And so the idea is to just constantly be getting a larger field, not only with the trumpet, but with life. So you read as much as you can, you watch as many movies, you try to experience things, you learn the name of a plant, all these things that we think, oh, okay, well, it's just a little thing, makes that field more robust, and it makes it more colorful. And then you draw upon that when you make anything, whether it's a composition or an improvisation, or you're writing something, or you're having a conversation with someone, or you're just taking a walk and thinking about things. All of it is better. And to me, the idea of narrowing that, which, some people, that's the approach they take, it's just not for me. I don't want to narrow anything. I want to go out of this life with all this color and all these things that I can draw upon, and having that kind of broad open thing, and have it be changing right up to the end. The people that I know that have been the most sustained musicians, if we just keep it on music, are the ones that are constantly adding to the field. The ones that burn out fast are the ones that stop trying. They go, okay, listen, I can play a double high C, I can do this gig, I will maintain that, and then what do you do? You know, for me, like then you watch TV, or like, I don't understand that thinking, although it's valid for them. But for me, boredom is the greatest ill in the world. You know, it's the thing you have to what I tell my students is like, you will not have to battle the trumpet. You will have to battle being bored with the trumpet. So learn how to constantly be finding new things to work on. And then you'll play until, you know, I just opened up for an alto player that just turned 99 and he's still playing, but he's got that mindset and he's still open to new ideas. And you know, his body will give out at some point, but he will be expanding up to that point. And for me, that's what I'd like to do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.